Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Billionaire Lifestyle Podcast. This is your host, Emmett Muckles, greeting you again today. Today our guest is Martin Hurlbert, and he is going to give us some key information about thriving with our finances today forward. Stay tuned and listen. It's going to be interesting. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Billionaire Lifestyle Podcast. I am your host, Emmett Muckles, where you can find the podcast on emmettmuckles.com. Today, I have an awesome guest who is great for us in 2017. Many of us are starting our New Year's resolutions, and what better way to start a resolution to get down to your brass taxes with your finances? Martin Hurlbert is an expert on developing good financial habits. He has written and lectured extensively on what drives our financial behavior and how this impacts the way we invest, spend money, and manage our money. I'd like to welcome Mr. Hurlbert to our podcast. Hello, sir.
Well, hello, sir, to you. Thanks for having me.
No problem. Thank you, because this is so very important. Some of us in this world never get to understand where our financial responsibilities come from, or never formulate a financial responsibility plan. You know, it's not taught to us in school. Many of our parents were ignorant as well because they were following whatever propaganda was presented to them. But if you go back in time, even in the Bible, it tells you what to do with your money, but we just seem to forget. So
we're good at that, that's for sure.
So what do you have for us? What is the basic premise behind Martin's message?
Okay, the basic premise behind my message can be summarized, I think, in 7 key words. And before I tell you these key words, can I give you a little background?
Absolutely.
All right. When I got in this business of being a financial advisor 25 years ago, my mother sent me an article from a newspaper. Now, keep in mind, this is in the days when you sent the actual article, not a link to it, like we do nowadays. So I get this physical piece of paper that says about 80% of all professional athletes, when they leave their sport, declare bankruptcy. They go from tens of millions, sometimes hundreds of millions of dollars to bankruptcy. And can we define bankruptcy? That's not zero. It's less than zero. It's way, way below zero. And that just kind of blew me away as this 25-year-old, brand new hotshot financial advisor. And how in the world could that happen? And that launched for me a lifelong quest to find out what's the cause behind that. And oftentimes we might think, well, yeah, they're athletes and, they play their sports, but they're not the brightest guys sometimes, which is really a myth. But we have that perception, and we're normal people, and we wouldn't do what they did. If I had $10 million or $20 million, I would save half of it. I'd do much better. But what my research showed me, Emmett, is that the same things that athletes do, we do as ordinary and average Americans.
That's
doctors, attorneys, lawyers.
I believe that
and
too.
So,
I'm sorry, keep going.
What's that?
I said I believe it too.
You believe it. So here, I'm going to now summarize 25 years of experience, having talked to thousands and thousands of people, read every book I can get my hand on behavioral economics, behavioral finance, psychology success, you name it. It drives my wife crazy. On vacation, I read books about money. Martin, can't you give it a break? I can't. That's what I live for. Here it comes. My 7 key words are this, Emmett. Emotions can be hazardous to your wealth.
Ooh. Say it again.
If people are listening, write this down. Emotions can be hazardous to your wealth. So what I hope we can do today is let me explain what I mean by that, how it impacts us, and then what we can do about it. Fair enough?
Fair enough. That is a fair assessment.
Okay, so we can understand how emotions impact our financial choices, personal finances, let's do a little background on the brain. Now, this is really basic level stuff. The brain's made of 2 parts, right? We got the right side and the left side. And what's the right side? It's the emotional side. So it's creative. It gets lots of solutions and ideas out there, more than we can handle. Then we have the left side that's logical, like Mr. Spock. If you go back to the right side, Emmett, the right side is driven by 2 primary motives. One is to get pleasure. The other one, can you guess?
Power.
It's to avoid pain.
Yeah.
So our emotional side wants to get pleasure or avoid pain, and it wants to do it right now. Very short-term thinking. Again, the left side, logical, will take what the right side creates, analyze it all, and try and pick the optimal solution. Now, life is good when both these sides of the brain are working in harmony. They're balanced, and they should be. But here's a big challenge we have today, and it's getting worse than ever. There's a great book out there called The Paradox of Choice. And he has a phrase in there I like, very similar to the title. He calls it the tyranny of choice. And the premise of this book is this, Emmett. Right now in today's society, we are given more choices than ever. Now, it's supposed to make our lives better. It's supposed to make us happier. We create customized experiences. But it's not making us happier. It's actually making us miserable as a society. Can I give you an example?
Yes, you may.
Have you ever bought those little fish crackers in a grocery store?
You mean the little orange ones?
Well, yes, the little orange ones. That's a very good point, too, because I'll get that in a moment here. But you bought those in the past, right?
Yes.
What's the purpose of those little orange fish crackers? Not health reasons.
No.
It's to make the kids happy.
Yes, they do. In the car.
Have them behave in the back seat of the car or, behave in church or wherever you're at. So we want to buy these fish crackers to make our kids or our grandkids happy. I was getting this class about 3 weeks ago. I went into my local Target grocery store to the fish cracker aisle. Do you know now they have 36 varieties of fish crackers?
No, I didn't know.
Now your brain now has to process and analyze between 36 different choices. I gave this class this past summer. A lady raised her hand, and she told me, vanilla cupcake. What do you mean, vanilla cupcake? I'm talking about fish crackers. No, that is my kid's favorite variety of fish crackers.
Vanilla cupcake.
And sure enough, now you go in the grocery store. I went myself last week. They have a vanilla cupcake flavor of fish crackers.
We only had cheese when I was a kid.
That's right. Exactly. Yeah, the orange cheese ones. Yeah. Exactly right. Me too. And yet somehow we survived, didn't we?
Yes, we did.
Now, Emmett, that's just for fish crackers. Imagine your entire day, your brain is constantly processing information, constantly being asked to make decisions. We're being inundated with 2,000 to 3,000 commercials every single day. Has your brain ever felt tired, Emmett, like you just couldn't think anymore?
Yes, it has, but here is the thing that I've instilled in my life. I control the media that is entered into my eyeballs. I severely restrict it.
That's what you have to do. Yeah, we have to limit it. Otherwise, we do go crazy. I heard this about President Obama. And whether you're a Republican or Democrat, he's a pretty smart dude. He has a lot of responsibilities. Any president does. And I read that he has either blue suits or, I think, gray suits. He has 2-color suits. That's it. Because he never wants to have to make that decision. So
let me ask you this. So can you give me a rundown of the things that are causing us to make poor financial decisions, and how they impact our lives?
All right. I think that's the next logical step here. So remember, you're trying to figure out which fish cracker to get. Not just that, you're trying to run your business, you're trying to spend time with your family. Your brain is being inundated with all these choices. There comes a point where the logical side of the brain checks out. It becomes overwhelmed. There's a very good book called The Organized Brain by Daniel Levitin. And he said this. Daniel Levitin said that that neurons are living cells. So our brains, of course, are made up of living cells. We know that. They need oxygen and glucose to survive. And when they've been working hard, we experience fatigue. So our brain literally does get tired. And here's the key point here, Emmett. Every status update, he goes on to say, you read on Facebook, every tweet or text message you get from a friend is competing for resources in your brain with important things like whether to put your money in savings or in stocks or in bonds.
Wow.
So these seemingly innocent choices we're making about which fish cracker to get are literally draining resources from our brain. And your brain can't tell if this is an important choice or a trivial choice. It has to process the information. And let me give you, there's a very good example of this, a study done at MIT that really illustrates it. At MIT, they asked a group of students to memorize some numbers. Now, there was one group had to memorize 7 numbers. That would be a stretch for me. The other group had to memorize only 2 numbers. But Emmett, that wasn't the test. What happened next was the test. When they were done, they said, hey, thanks very much for participating. Hey, would you like something to eat? And they had some chocolate cake, and they had some fresh fruit. And what they found is that one group overwhelmingly chose cake, the other group chose the fresh fruit. Any guesses to which is which?
So the ones with the 2 numbers, correct?
Okay, 2 numbers. Did they choose cake or fresh fruit?
2 numbers chose fresh fruit.
Okay, you're exactly right. That's it. And those who had to memorize 7 numbers, almost everyone chose the cake. Scientists concluded that those who were memorizing 7 numbers, their brains got tired and temporarily shut down. And then the emotional side was able to take over. Remember, the emotional side wants what? To get pleasure or avoid pain right now. So it probably wants something like this, in their head to hear this voice, cake good, me cake now. That's the primitive emotional side of their brain making that choice for them. And that's why sometimes we as human beings, we will look back at a choice we made, let's call it, 6 months ago, and we ask ourselves, geez, what in the world was I thinking? It might have been something we bought, it might have been an investment, and we just go, geez, I can't believe I did that. There's a very good chance that you were literally not thinking, but you were reacting emotionally. Now, can we put this more in the context of making financial choices?
Yes, please do.
Okay, so we go through a day, we're trying to pick out the best fish cracker to make the kids stop crying, all these commercials we got, and you're smart to limit the media. That's awesome. But we're still inundated, and our brains are tired, and then we spend time with our spouse and our kids, and all the stuff we got to do. It's now about 10 o'clock at night, and you're thinking, geez, I've got that old 401k from a previous job. I need to roll that over. So you're in your bed at 10 o'clock at night, and you go to the source of all knowledge and wisdom, which is what? Just Google. You type into Google, how to invest. Up pops, Emmett, 267 million websites on how to invest your money. If you watched or looked at 100 websites every single day, 365 days a year, it would take you 72 years to get through them all. And would you accomplish anything or make any progress?
No, that's the amazing thing is there's so much information and most of it does not pertain to what I'm looking for as well. And it just frustrates me.
Exactly right. All the information you want, it's out there. This is something I teach people is that it's not about getting the right answers to be successful. It's about having the right questions. So if you've got the best answer in the world, but the question's wrong to begin with, it's useless. And yet we feel smart because, I've got the best answer and I could prove it and here's all the research. Well, yeah, but what if the question's wrong?
So let me ask you this. So with all this stuff that's just inundating us, constantly from morning to night, sometimes even while we sleep because your phone is going bling, bong, bing, what impact does it have on you?
Okay, well, that's a great question. So now you're trying to make this decision about where to roll your 401k over to. You get 267 million websites. You got Fox Business News. You got Jim Cramer on TV screaming at you what to do with your money, Fortune magazine, all this overwhelming, conflicting information. And when you're faced with an important decision and you get overwhelming, conflicting information, typically one of 2 things happens. One is you make a decision. I don't care anymore, whatever, and you do something. Now, what side of your brain do you think is in charge when you make that decision?
Your left side.
It's the emotional side.
Yeah.
Okay? The other thing you do, rather than make a decision, is you postpone it, and you throw that decision in what I call your financial junk drawer. Now, in your home, do you have a kitchen junk drawer? Most of us do.
Oh, I have several.
You have several. All right, very good. And so what goes in the kitchen junk drawer? Well, it's stuff that you're not sure if it works. You're not sure if you'll ever use it again. You don't know what to do with it. You don't want to make a decision, so it goes in the junk drawer. Well, a lot of times when I sit down with couples for the first time, their personal finances can best be described as a financial junk drawer. So they got this, double E series savings bond. Their grandma bought them when they were 5 years old and started kindergarten. They have no idea if it's good. That's like 30 years old. They may have an old life insurance policy they bought from their brother-in-law, and he already quit the business. Should they keep it? Should they cancel? They don't know what to do. But here's a true story. I used to be in the Army National Guard, and about 2 years back, I was having lunch with an old Army buddy of mine. Now, this guy, highly educated, very successful, owns a business. He's making a lot of money. And during this casual conversation, Emmett, he says to me, you know, Martin, when I married my wife 10 years back, she was 35 years old, a single mom of 3 kids. Now, that's a real struggle, right? My hat goes off to her. And he said that when we got married, she stopped working, and she left her 401k with her past employer. We did nothing with it. Martin, can you help me out? I said, sure, I do it all the time, 401k rollovers. And just to get a rough idea of what his options might be, I said, hey, can you tell me what the approximate balance is? Now, keep in mind, you know, single mom, 35 years old, 3 kids. She was probably struggling financially. So in my mind, I'm thinking it might be $20,000 in her 401k. He says, no, Martin, I think it's $150,000.
That's a good one.
So this smart, hardworking gentleman has a $150,000 account where? Basically in his financial junk drawer. Every 3 months he'd get this statement and go, oh, yeah, I should probably look into this. Put it back in the junk drawer and forget about it. That went on for 10 years.
But, you know, a lot of people have that. I mean, now that you say it, now that you bring it to my forefront, a lot of people have that, and they just, it's not even a thought to them because it's literally in the junk drawer. It's hidden.
That's right. So whether you make an emotionally based decision or you postpone the decision, you throw it in the financial junk drawer, that adds to stress or leads to stress. There was a study that showed people with high levels of stress are 2.5 times more likely to get ulcers. And that pit in your stomach, right? People with high levels of stress, Emmett, are 5 times more likely to suffer from depression. Now, depression can be devastating for an individual or a family.
Yes, I know that.
People with high levels of stress are 10 times more likely to get headaches or migraines. Now, I got to be careful, Emmett, with this next thing I'm going to say to you.
Uh-oh.
And to the audience.
Uh-oh.
Okay? But gentlemen, if your wife has a headache tonight, chances are she doesn't need an aspirin. She needs you to get the financial house in order to get your financial stress reduced. Then she'll have fewer headaches.
That's a good one, my man. That's a good one.
Well, thank you.
That is
so the bottom line is personal financial stress impacts our relationships, our health, our spirituality, our emotional well-being. It impacts everything.
So with all this stress, what's the answer? I mean...
Very good. I'll tell you one thing that's not the answer first, and then we'll go into the answer. 3 simple steps. Here's the number one thing that's not the answer. It's a big, huge myth. People out there believe that money solves financial problems. And money does not solve financial problems. If it did, every lottery winner would live happily ever after. But what happens to them?
They usually go broke.
They go broke, oftentimes end up divorced, lose all their friends and family. Absolutely. So, yes, not money. Here's the key to financial success. Get your pen and paper ready again here. Here it is.
I have it.
Financial success comes from making better choices. Period. Now, I don't want you or the audience to say, oh, obviously, Martin, better choices. Don't dismiss that because it's simple. You and I both know, Emmett, that in life, the things that lead to success, more often than not, are very simple. Whether it's your health, your relationships, business, whatever it is. So those who succeed financially, they're not better looking than the rest of us. They don't work any harder. They do work hard, but you can work really hard and still be a complete financial failure. They've learned to make better choices. And now let me circle around to my original statement. What drives all of our choices? How we think it's going to make us feel. It's all based by emotion. So if you drive a new car or a used car, it's how you think it will make you feel, the kind of clothes you wear, the way you earn your income. You know, I've been now a financial advisor for actually almost 26 years now. I make a good living. My mom lives in California, and God bless her. She was a school teacher. My dad was in the Air Force, so they were government workers. To this day, my mom's saying, you know, Martin, when are you going to get a real job? Well, why don't you move to California? You'll be a 5th grade teacher. You'll have summers off. You'll be done every day at 3 o'clock. You'll have a great lifestyle. And here, in California, they start you at $50,000 a year. And within 20 years, you'll be at $75,000 a year. And I try and point out very gently, Mom, I make more than that now.
That is a good point that you say, because one thing about life that we don't understand is that we are the culmination of our choices. And for us to change and go to a different path, we simply have to change our choices, which means changing our mindset.
Right, and it's driven oftentimes by emotion. So for my mother, It is emotionally, I don't know what the word would be, devastating. She just can't comprehend being self-employed. Whereas me, I cannot comprehend working for an hourly wage. I don't care if it's $100 an hour or $500 an hour. I don't want to work for an hourly rate. I want to produce value for my clients. I want to produce value for my listeners, those who read my books. And I want to get paid by the value I produce. Now, that's me, and that's okay. Thank God for people like my mother and my father. We need everyone, don't we, in this economy?
We need everyone. So you've kind of directed us in the way of what's causing us to be this certain way. So now that you've done that, what's the solution? I mean, how?
Okay, so we got 3 simple solutions that will help us mitigate the impact of emotions. Here's the first solution: purpose. Clearly define your purpose. What matters most to you? When someone comes to my office for the very first time, I don't talk about what their portfolio is or their debt or their income. The very first thing I say is, what matters to you? In fact, on my website, ifmoneycouldstalk.com, in the resource section, there's a download. It's free. It says self-assessment. I like to have my clients do the self-assessment before they come to my office. And it'll be very good for your listeners to do the same thing. It just is a series of questions. It's about 6 or 7 questions that help you define what matters to you. Now, we kind of think we know what matters to us, and we go through life and we get busy, but it's rare the person that clearly defines in writing what matters to them. I found the most successful people have a very clear vision of what they want, don't they, Emmett?
Yes, this is coming up because I've been on a quest here. I've been kind of on a podcast interview marathon, and that very thing keeps coming up where, first of all, words are power. And there's several methods to use them. You can speak them and you can write them. And most people don't even have either one of those in their repertoire of life.
That's right. And when you clearly define your life's purpose, you can achieve my definition of financial success, which is this. Financial success comes from aligning your resources with your values. You align your time, energy, and money with what you value in life, and you'll be successful. And you could be a school teacher making $50,000 a year and be a complete financial success. You could have millions and millions of dollars and be a complete failure. When we don't align our resources with our values, that's when stress enters our life and things just start going wrong, and we're not sure what's even happening. The chances are you've lost out of your purpose. Let me give you an example of that. Do you remember when the first iPhones came out?
2007.
2007, okay, I got a picture from my local newspaper when the very first iPhone came out at 1 minute past midnight. Now, I'll describe it to you and your listeners, but there's this line of people outside the store. They are literally applauding with huge looks of joy on their faces. Oh, he got an iPhone. I can't believe it. This is so wonderful. And the caption below says, this is pretty much the single best experience of my life.
Ew.
Says so-and-so, I won't say her name, but I've got the picture. The single best experience of her life, Emmett, was spending $500 on a phone at 1 minute past midnight. And what happened to the price of that phone 2 months later? It dropped by half. They're now on the 6th generation iPhone. So the single best experience of her life, it's obsolete. Do you know anyone who uses the original iPhone?
No, I don't.
Apart from a doorstop, maybe a paperweight.
Yeah, you can't use them. You can't even use them as a music player.
Exactly. So, single best experience of our life. Now, when we lose sight of our purpose, that's when we sometimes make poor choices when it comes to spending money. If we have out of control debt, we're spending beyond our means, we've lost sight of the purpose. Now, if I ask that young lady, is this the most important thing in your life, really? What's your true life's purpose? She would probably say it's not spending $500 on the phone. That's now obsolete. But because we don't make that clarification in advance, now we're susceptible to making poor choices with our money. So clearly define your purpose. And when you clearly define your purpose, it also gives you a perspective which makes choices easier. And choices, I think, in life, they're never completely easy, okay? We always struggle with them. But if you know what's important to you, and you've defined it, you can now begin to make better choices. So the first step everyone needs to do is clearly define your purpose. It gives you perspective, makes choices easier, and it helps you avoid, I think, overspending or just irrational choices. So that's the first step.
That's step number one.
The second step then is to create a plan.
Okay. So
You need to figure out how much money you will need to have one day to achieve your life's goals. And let's just keep it simple for today. We'll talk about retirement, and that could be other things as well that may be a little shorter in duration. But if you want to retire at age 65 and have, let's call it $10,000 a month of income, you need to sit down today and figure out, based on what I currently have saved, what do I have to do now between now and 65 to achieve that goal? Very few people know that number. Very few. And I'm going to share with you an analogy from my own life that kind of illustrates this point. I mentioned I was in the Army. I went to officers training, got a commission, so now I'm a lieutenant. They call me sir, at least to my face, right? And when I got my commission, the Army sent me down to Fort Huachuca, Arizona for 6 months. During those 6 months, they paid me $2,500 a month. Now, this is 25 years ago. Prior to this, my wife and I were living on $800 a month. So we were poor college students. We go from $800 a month to $2,500 a month, 3 times the income. So now all of our financial problems are solved, right? Well, not really. Remember, money doesn't solve financial problems. Within a couple weeks of being down there, Emmett, my wife said to me, Martin, I am sick and tired of acting like a beggar in my own household. And being a man, I'm totally clueless. I said, what do you mean? Well, if I want to go out to eat, you ask me, you question me. If I want to buy shoes for our daughter, you say, does she really need shoes? Now, that's a guy thing, right? I just say, does she need them? I support my wife.
Yep.
But I didn't realize it was stressing her out. And I told her, you know what? Tell you what, I'm going to go back to where we live here in Utah in 6 months and start my career as a financial advisor. I would like us to save $1,000 a month for 6 months. So we go away with $6,000 in our pocket.
Yeah.
That leaves $1,500 a month in the checking account. I told my wife, your goal is to spend it all.
That's a good way to look at it.
Your goal is now. She's getting more money than she was used to before we got there because we were poor students. She's happy. Now, if we go out to eat, I don't question it. We go out to eat. You want to buy shoes? Let's buy shoes. You want to send your mom some money? Send her money. I don't care what you do with that money. So when you have a plan that says, here's what you have to do to reach this goal. That's a very short-term one, right? 6 months. But we did it. And ever since that point, we've always saved first, according to our plan. And any money left over is my wife's job to spend it. And I don't question her. Well, I say I rarely question her.
So let me ask you a question. What if somebody's upside down? So then does that mean you have to get a plan to say, hey, this is where we are. We need to at least get back to zero. Or at least,
Yeah.
So maybe I need to work at Uber for 6 months so we can get back to zero. And then we're going to enact plan B from plan A. Right.
I don't have that on my website, but if your listeners email me, I've got a very good Excel spreadsheet to pay off debt. And when I come across someone like that, I will say, okay, let's add up all your debts. True story, one of my clients, I think they were at about $32,000 in credit card debt. So we add up all the amounts, what the minimum payments were, and I think it showed them being debt free in maybe it was 5 or 6 years. Now I'll tell you this right now: just the fact that you write down every single debt you have and the interest rate, the balance, and so forth, just doing that gives you hope. There's a mental shift that happens. So this couple, they had hope. 6 years from now, we'll have zero credit card debt. But of course, yes, they earned some extra money. If they got a tax refund, this little program shows you if you add more money to it, how much quicker you can pay off the debt. And it took them about, I think it was 2.5, maybe it was 3 years max. But they completely wiped out $35,000 in credit card debt in roughly 3 years on the same income they had before.
I believe
now their brain was focused on a goal with a plan. They started making what? Better choices.
Mm-hmm.
That's a great question. Yeah, so it works with long-range financial goals like retirement, short-range goals like my 6 months of savings. It works with paying off debt. You need to create a plan. How am I going to do it? How am I going to execute this?
You're absolutely right, because it's about 18 to 36 months from start to finish, because I was deeply underwater, and it was about 24 months that I saw daylight. And it was just amazing. It was like, they're gone. Everything's gone.
Yeah. and the stress levels go down. You feel better. Everything's better. So you clearly define your purpose. You create a plan. And one last thing about plan before we go to the third step. When you create your plan, you need to understand your money DNA, or also call your money personality.
Ooh.
And we all have them, and they're all unique. I once had a doctor come into my office. Oh, sorry, that wasn't a doctor. It was the wife of a doctor, a very prominent doctor in a small town about an hour from where I live. So the wife of the doctor comes into my office, and within 5 minutes, Emmett, she's literally crying. She explained to me that 10 years prior, he finished medical school, started working, he had about $500,000 in debt, which is not unusual for medical school. Okay, he was a specialist. Now, 10 years have gone by. He's averaged about $300,000 or $400,000 per year for 10 years, and they got over $1 million in debt. They've doubled their debt load, making hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. Financial stress was tearing them apart. They're on the verge of bankruptcy and divorce.
Wow.
Now, what would most people say, or advisors? Oh, we got to put you on this, the strict diet, so to speak, of don't spend any money. All goes towards debt. I knew immediately, based on my research and my experience, that financial mismanagement was a symptom, but not the actual problem. So we had them do their money personalities. Turns out he was a spender. That's one of the personalities. His wife is a saver. That's another personality. That was creating huge conflicts. He would, to eliminate stress in his life, or trying to reduce stress from being a doctor in the specialty he had, he would just spend money like crazy. He would go back to his office and look for deals online and buy stuff they would never even use. Sometimes $1,000, a couple $1,000s a month. And he was too busy to use it. But it's his release mechanism was spending money. And so I recognized that once we figured out his money personality. His wife's a saver. So now with that knowledge in mind, I created a plan that would be far more effective. I said to them, you're now going to save $2,000 a month, which he could do based on his income. If you achieve that goal, Dr. So-and-so, you get a below $200, which is 10% of the savings. You could buy anything you want. Now, if you're a spender, you get the emotional release, whether it's $20, $200, or $20,000. Doesn't really matter. So we had to give him that outlet of release, emotional release. His wife is now happy because, number one, she understood why he's spending so much money. So if he blows $200, big deal. He saved $1,800, right?
Yeah, that's true.
And so that was able to save them. Here's another a good analogy for this. You ever been driving down the freeway? Let's call it 75 miles an hour. It's a speed that you're comfortable with. And while you're going down 75 miles an hour, thinking about getting rich, some guy passes you at 90 miles an hour, goes whizzing by you. What do we tend to think of that person?
You can't use me as the best one because I'm really content.
Okay, well, good for you. A lot of us will say, though, when someone goes whizzing by us, well, geez, what a jerk. They're a danger on the road. They should probably lose their license because they're going too fast. And then while we're having that thought, we come up behind someone who's going 10 miles an hour slower than us, and we can't get around them. So do we praise their cautious nature?
No.
No, it's the same thing. Geez, what a jerk. They're a danger on the streets. They should lose their license. So anyone who goes faster or slower than us on the freeway, we think to ourselves, they're crazy. Why are they like that? We don't get it. And it's very similar to the way we manage our money. Anyone who takes more or less risk than us, we don't get it. We don't understand it. If they spend money differently than us or they earn it, entrepreneurial versus government worker, we just don't get it, just like my mom. Now, here's a key point, Emmett. There's a very good chance you're married to someone like that you don't get, financially speaking. We tend to marry our opposites. And that's what causes conflict in marriages when the wife's a saver, the husband's a spender, and they keep butting heads. So if people will understand their money personality and then now their spouse, that just goes, does wonders for them, for their marriage and for their sanity. And if they want to get that, it's also on my website, ifmoneycouldtalk.com. Right there on the homepage, it says free money personality profile. You answer 20 questions, and I'll give you the report back within a day. Well, and you'll know what your first. What's that?
Well, see, I'm a little different. This is my second marriage, and I pretty much married my soulmate. So we kind of see eye to eye on most things. So I want to add it differently. As a matter of fact, she has a high EQ, a very high EQ, where I'm just a Neanderthal, as I always say. So she helps me, and I help her in other ways. So we're like the yin and yang for each other, where we complement.
Well, and that's what you need is complementary. And all these different money personalities, they are complementary. The spender enjoys life. They want to have fun right now. It's kind of like my wife. I'm the saver, so I'm the killjoy. So if my wife and I can understand that, and then we compromise and get along, life is much, much better. So I take more vacations now. I'm willing to spend more money, and she's willing to let me save money. The main thing is, Emmett, is again, understand your own personality. And some of us know already, some of us don't know. But take that little quiz, find yours out, have your spouse take the same quiz, then have a discussion. You'll be amazed at what you'll understand about your spouse. So we've got define your purpose, right? We've got create the plan.
Correct.
And part of the plan is know your money personality. The last thing then is understand what impacts performance. And I'll go back again to emotions can be hazardous to your wealth.
So you said, let's revisit that.
Oh,
So you find your purpose, you create a plan, figure out your personality within that plan, and then state the last part again.
The last one is to measure progress. I'll say it that way.
Measure progress. There you go.
Measure progress. I have, many clients who are multi-millionaires. And every time I sit down with them, I just ask, okay, how's it going? We chat for a little bit. It's very friendly. And I say, all right, now tell me, where's your money? What's going on right now? Well, Martin, I got $1 million with you. I got $500,000 in this development project. I just lent $250,000 to this new startup. They track and they know where all their money's at all times, usually just in their head. They just spout these numbers off to me. So as I realized that amongst all my multimillionaire clients, it occurred to me to ask a very good question, I think. Do people get millions and millions of dollars and then say, you know what, I better start tracking it? I better start keeping track of my money. Or do they get millions of dollars because, first of all, they start tracking their money?
So they tracked up to $1 million.
They track up. So you start with zero. So those who track their money, they track their progress. They measure their progress. They make more progress than those who don't. So whether you invest, it doesn't matter. It could be real estate. It could be stocks and bonds. It could be with me as an advisor. It could be anywhere. Here's the key thing. Measure your progress. That's going to tell you if it's working or not. I sat down with a couple about 5 or 6 years ago. This guy, he loved day trading. Now, a little side note for a joke, how do you make $1 million day trading?
I have no clue.
You start with $10 million. In no time, you have $1 million. So this guy, literally, he lost his job, had $85,000 401k. And he says, Martin, I got this day trading system. It cost me a few grand, and it worked really well until it didn't. But then I found a better system that worked really well until it didn't. He went through 3 separate systems, and he had transformed that $85,000 IRA account into a $2,000 account.
Ooh, not good.
And Emmett, and then he literally told me with a straight face, but Martin, I just found a system I'm so excited about. I know it's going to work. Mm-hmm. If he had been measuring his progress, and this may seem, again, an oversimplification, he would have seen that he was going in the wrong direction, that it wasn't working.
So that's just like going to Vegas and sitting at the blackjack table, you win, and you say, I was counting cards. Oh, they changed the deck. Okay.
Right.
Now I'm going to
Except in Vegas, you get free drinks.
Yeah, you do.
But with day trading, you don't. Now, that's an extreme example. But if people will just measure their progress, I think it's almost a cure-all. Every 3 months, everyone should sit down and calculate their net worth. What they have, all their assets, their investments, everything they owe, subtract that, and look at that number. Just track it.
Yeah, I do that frequently.
And probably, monthly is even better. In fact, with my clients, I have a program that does it every single day. It's kind of like Mint.com, but on steroids. So I put my clients in this program, and every single day it tells them their net worth. Now, they don't have to check it every day, but it's calculated for them automatically every day. So you check your progress, and that will make sure that your plan is working. And if that number is getting smaller, it's not working, make an adjustment.
So how do you know what to adjust? That's one of the biggest things about when you're especially dealing with money, because people think that they have excuse me, financial intelligence, but it was never taught to most of us. So we're just kind of grabbing at straws. So where do you gain this financial confidence and understanding for your money?
Okay, that's a great question. I think that there's two parts, or there's two kinds of people. There are do-it-yourselfers who love to manage their own money, and they want to read all the books about it. And if you're really committed to the process of truly learning how the stock market works and investments works, you can do it. I am no smarter than any of my clients. Absolutely not. But I have a vastly different experience than them because all I do is money. Imagine you hire a financial advisor who has been, let's call it a plumber for the past 40 years, but he's read Money Magazine, he's read a few books from Amazon. Would you trust him with your life savings?
No.
Probably not, right? But what if that's you? Do you do what you do to the best of your ability, whatever your career field is? And we're not experts in the money game. I am. It's all I do. But if my car breaks down, I don't fix it myself. I hire a guy to fix it. All I do is money. If I need a doctor, I go see a doctor. I don't try to figure it out by myself and do my own operations. I mean, you think of what do you pay a doctor for when you go in there and you pay him $100 for a 5-minute visit?
Yeah.
You're not paying for those 5 minutes. You're paying for the experience. That doctor has maybe seen 10 patients that day, 100 patients that week or the past 2 weeks with very similar symptoms for this virus going around. And so they know instantly, here's what it is. That's what we're paying for. So this may sound a little self-serving because I'm a financial advisor, but I would say that most people are better off with a financial advisor, typically. It's very hard to manage your own money because emotions do get in the way. Remember who Phil Jackson is?
Yeah, I know who Phil Jackson is. All
right, Phil Jackson, one of the best coaches in the history of the league. He has how many championships with the Bulls?
I can't even count.
That's 6. Then he leaves the Chicago Bulls, and then he goes to the L.A. Lakers. 3 with the Lakers. Do you think that Phil Jackson was a better basketball player than Kobe Bryant or Shaquille O'Neal or Michael Jordan?
No.
He was not a better player. So why in the world do world-class athletes have a coach?
Because they can see what the player cannot.
Exactly. So when they're playing, they have this outside perspective that they'll notice things the player doesn't notice. Plus, Phil Jackson has been to it's not the dance, I know in the NBA, but the championships multiple times. And so if you're a brand new player going for the first time to the championships, Phil Jackson can say, okay, you know what? Kobe, this stuff over here, that's a distraction. Ignore that. This stuff is real. So he can help the players filter what they need to focus on because of experience. Phil Jackson has also dedicated his whole life to the game of basketball. He has a whole support staff backing him up. So if you happen to be weak at free throws, does Phil Jackson stand with you on the free throw line and tell you what to do? Or do you got a coach for that?
He has a coach for it.
He's going to refer you to somebody else. He's overseeing the whole process. And it's kind of like that with financial advisors. We will see things our clients don't see on their own. We dedicate our lives to this. This is all we do. That's all I talk about. It's all I read about.
Hey.
And I also have experts. So if someone's struggling with debt, I have an expert on debt. If it's trying tax strategies, avoid taxation, I got another expert I refer them to, and so on.
Where can people find your information? We've talked a lot, but we haven't directed anybody to where they can find you and find your information exactly.
Okay, I've got a couple of websites, but the simplest one to remember is ifmoneycouldtalk.com.
There you go, ifmoneycouldtalk.com.
Right. Go there, and they can get their money personality assessment. There's no charge for that. On the resource tab, there's a few things they could download there. They'll help them to begin to have some discussions. And if they want to contact me, they can send me an email, and I'll do my best to answer questions they have.
What about how to be a financial failure or not?
Okay. You want to go through that?
Yeah.
Okay. This is chapter 5 of my very first book. Can we learn from failures?
Yes, we can.
Of course we can, right?
Yes.
Find out what they do and then don't do it. Find out where they go and don't go there. So I've noticed that certain patterns repeat themselves of those who struggle financially. And I condense it down into how to be a financial failure. And if the listeners want a copy of this, I've got an 8-page summary. I'm happy to email them. So go to the website, send me a message, and I will send you an 8-page summary of all this. Okay, here's the first step to being a financial failure. is to not invest in you. Don't get a good education. Don't improve your skills by reading books and taking self-improvement courses and learning all you can about your career field. Try and do the absolute minimum to get by. Now, for me, Emmett, I went to high school and I finished in 1984, so quite a few years ago. But everyone has these people in their high school, the kind of people that will fail an exam and just laugh about it. Oh, I was so wasted last night. I didn't study at all. Yeah, I failed that exam. And they're, the quote-unquote cool kids. And they're trying to get through life by doing the absolute minimum, but that never stops. That's how financial failures think. Financial failures will rarely, if ever, read a book once they leave high school. Instead of reading books, they read gossip magazines like People or others, Us Weekly, and they look at Brad Pitt or Angelina Jolie and say, wow, if I had a husband like that or if I had a wife like that, boy, life would sure be good. And they look at the big cars and the fancy houses and all that stuff. And they put down the magazine and they flip on their EIR for 5, 6, 7 hours a day. Did you have any EIRs in your house?
What's an EIR?
Electronic income reducer or television set.
I like that one.
So here's how failures think. If I can just go from 6 hours a day of TV to 7 hours, hey, maybe my life will get better. And of course not. And this is what blows me away, Emmett. I see commercials here for my local Comcast, affiliate, for Comcast or cable TV. Hey, guess what? You can watch one show and record 4 more.
Yeah,
okay. Do you know who watches one show while they record 4 more? Poor people.
Yeah, I know a few people who are
Poor
stuck
people.
on. Yeah.
Okay, people whose lives revolve around the TV and not listening to this podcast. And here we are, Emmett, you and I were giving this information away. It could be life-changing. But let me check what's on TV first. So the first step to being a financial failure is don't invest in yourself. The second step to being a financial failure is to spend all you make. Now, if you spend more than you make, that's a bonus, but you don't have to. Just spend all you make. Now, the beauty of this formula is it works at any income level. If you make $50,000, then you spend $50,000. How about my doctor example? He made $400,000 a year, and guess how much he spent? A little more than that.
How is that possible?
Oh, it's very easy, right? With credit cards and
yes.
It's this consumer culture that we're in, and we're watching the Kardashians on TV. If you have a TV, and I don't have cable in my house, I canceled cable years ago.
I did too.
Good for you. And so we're watching all these lifestyles, and yeah, you want to have what they have, and you want to reduce the stress because your wife's all stressed out, and so, yeah, let's go on vacation, and we'll just charge it. So the second step, again, is to spend every dime you have. The third step being a financial failure is to refuse to take responsibility for yourself. Blame your employer, the high cost of living, the expense of raising children, taxes. Nothing's your fault. Here's a true example. I heard of someone who got a job while he was going to college at a call center. Now, this call center, they had 24-hour-a-day operations. It was very important that they had all the phones covered. And so they told this guy when he was hired in his early 20s, you've got to be on time. If you show up late 5 times, the 5th time you're fired immediately, no questions asked. Okay, no problem. Now this young man, he'd grown up his whole life with his, basically his mother taking care of him, knock on the door, time to get up for high school, and okay, Mom, 5 more minutes, and that was kind of his outlook on life. And within a very short period of time, he had 3 lates in his job. He gets his 4th late. Now, if you and I have 4 out of 5 lates on a job that pays you really good wages, and the 5th one you're going to be fired, would you make a change, Emmett?
Yeah, I basically sleep in the parking lot.
Yeah, or at least buy an alarm clock, right?
Yeah.
Something.
Wake up 2 hours
but not
early.
This guy. So he shows up for work one day, and a coworker says, "Hey, I'm having problems with this little thing. Can you help me out?" So instead of clocking in, he went right to the coworker, and he helped the coworker fix some problem. Then he clocks in 2 minutes late, and they fired him. And if you ask him, he'll say, "I was fired because I helped a coworker." See, Emmett, he's not taking responsibility.
Yeah.
That's how financial failures think. It's not my fault. The 4th step, then, to being a financial failure is to wait for the best time to start saving money. Now, this next little paragraph right here, I'm going to describe to you the financial plan for far too many Americans. When you're in school, wait till you graduate. When you graduate, wait till you buy your first home. When you buy your first home, wait till you get the place fixed up and you buy furniture for it. By that time, you have kids in Little League and dance school. Before you know it, they'll be in college. Then finally, you'll be in your 50s with little or no money. So if you want to be a financial failure, just wait for the best time to start saving money.
So let me ask you. Let me pose. What is the median income in America? Isn't it about $50,000?
It's somewhere around there. Yes.
That's not a lot of money.
No.
And those people don't save. But you are absolutely right, where you have to save money out the gate. That was one of the lessons that my dad told me when I was a teenager. He said, save 10%. He said, if you just save 10% of everything you make, you'll be good, especially starting very young.
That's right. And why is it? What does that do for us, Emmett? First of all, it's a mindset, right? That you can live on less than you're making. And when you start saving that money, then an opportunity comes up. And you could be a kid in high school. There's an opportunity to maybe buy a few bicycles, and you want to rent them out to somebody else. Or you buy a few tuxedos, you rent them out for proms. You get a little side gig going. When the opportunity is out there, Emmett, cash is king. Money talks. That's why you have to save the money before the opportunity happens. So financial failures don't think like that, do they? They just spend it all, and they're always going to wait. It's going to be easier to save money next week. It'll be easier to save money next year. And they'll justify it. You know what? I got to take my kids to Disneyland now when they're 5 years old, because they'll never be 5 years old again. And they'll go into debt for that and spend more than they make. You
know, I tried to tell some people that I said, delay your instant gratification. Delay it for 24 months, 3 years, 4 years. Just don't do anything. Just save some money. I said, because after that time, some opportunities will come and you will be in the position not to borrow money. You will have it at your beck and call. They didn't follow my advice, and some opportunities came up, and they were like, how are you able to jump on this? I was like, remember that conversation we had a while ago? That's because I save for a rainy or a sunny day.
That's right. And they'll say, oh, Emmett, you're just lucky. They might think that, if they have that failure mentality. I bought, you and I, we both play guitar, electric guitar. I bought a really nice electric guitar from a guy getting married. And I bought for about 25% of what it cost retail. So he paid $750. I paid $250. I buy almost all my musical instruments used because they're just as good as the ones in the store if they're good quality.
Yes.
And my favorite guitar is I've had it for 34 years, about 1982.
What kind is it?
It's a Strat copy. I've had it longer than my wife. I probably shouldn't say that, should I? But anyway.
You shouldn't say that. You shouldn't say that.
And I'm glad you're laughing, okay? And I love my wife. I love my guitar as well. But this quality. So don't wait for the best time to start saving money. There's never a better time to save money. The last step then to being a financial failure is to ignore sound financial principles and try and gamble what little savings you have in high-risk investments. And if you really want to do a bonus, I would say, they have these guys that come through town, usually 3 or 4 times a year. Come to our free 90-minute workshop, and you go there, and it's a 90-minute sales pitch for their $3,000, $4,000, or $5,000 weekend, where they teach you all these inside secrets to amassing wealth. Most of them are scams.
Yeah, it's much simpler than people make it out to be. It's so simple that people don't pay attention to it.
I actually went to one of these about a year ago in my hometown, and I just couldn't believe it. They're saying, hey, you know what? The rich don't work hard. They just start a business, and the business pays them money every month, whether they work or not. And the people in the audience, yeah, that's right. You know what? And I heard people around me swearing at the rich. And the guy's working his crowd into a frenzy about all the things that the rich do that you don't know about, but we're going to give you access. And if you pull out your credit card and spend just $3,000 today, you'll be like the rich and the wealthy.
That's because they appeal to their emotional brain.
That's right. Exactly. Yep. Emotions can be hazardous to your what? To your wealth. And they take advantage of that. My question's always been this. If those guys are so good at what they do, Why do they go from city to city every single week? That's a hard lifestyle. Being away from your family constantly. Why are they on the road like that? In fact, there was one guy, I won't say his name, but he got very, very wealthy selling this stock trading system. And it was actually 1997, a little while ago. The Attorney General from the state of Texas sued this organization for not disclosing that their own personal stock trades had $1 million loss in 1997. These guys lose $1 million trading stocks. So how can you stay in business losing money like that? He made $110 million telling people how to trade stocks when he couldn't do it himself.
Right.
And he would just get up there and talk about being rich and how easy it is and look at this and that. And if you pay me $3,000, I'll teach you how to do it. And people are just right and left writing them checks.
So, Martin, you've given us some great information. And do you have a YouTube channel or something where people can see you live or where they can interact with you? Or do you correspond by email? What all do you have available for the Billionaire Lifestyle listeners, or how can they reach you?
Okay, well, once again, go to ifmoneycouldtalk.com. There's a video there of me speaking. If you'd like me to come speak to your organization, you can watch that and contact me that way. There's some resources right there, and also the Contact Me page. And I try to be careful with my time, but also at the same time as generous as I can be. If someone contacts me, says, Martin, I got a question, we can do a video chat. We'll set up a 15, 20-minute phone call. Time permitting, I'm happy to do that. Because it all comes down to a conversation, really, in the end. All the information you have, all the information that's out there, how do you apply it to you or your listeners? Let's just talk about it.
So let me ask you this about international customers. What if I have someone who is not in the United States, but they want to seek your counsel? For instance, this podcast, basically from the analytics that I've seen, can literally go anywhere. It can go to England, it can go to Australia, it can go to Africa, a little bit in China, once or twice in China, but and Russia. But what if someone just has that American feel and you resonate with them? Is that a possibility as well?
Sure. I grew up in the Air Force. I think I mentioned my dad was in the Air Force. I was born in Scotland. I went to high school in South Korea and England. I've also lived in Germany. So, yeah, I'd be happy to talk to someone.
Awesome.
We'll do a Skype call or something. Absolutely. In fact, I would like to have an excuse to go back to England. So if anyone right now is listening from England and you like this, and you got a group, a group you speak to, hey, talk to me.
You just want some blood sausage for breakfast, don't you?
That's what I like. Battered sausage and chips. That's my favorite. You take a healthy sausage full of fat and you deep fry that sucker. Some fries and some vinegar, chips and vinegar. I miss that. I really do.
Well, see, my wife is Austrian, so.
Oh, there you go.
Oh, yeah. I'm going to tell you something about Austria. This is really funny coming from America. It's the only place where I go and I ate carbs, drank beer, and meat. I rarely saw a vegetable and lost weight.
Yep. Is that because you were walking everywhere?
Because I was walking everywhere and nothing was processed.
That's right. Yep. Europeans walk everywhere. I go to the Red Box to get a DVD, and it's about 4 blocks from my house. My neighbors think I'm crazy because I walk there and back.
Yeah, it's a different lifestyle.
It might take me 15 minutes to get there and back. But I design my life, Emmett, so I can walk as much as possible.
Now, you're in Utah, correct?
I am, yes.
Near which city are you located?
I'm very close to Provo, Utah, which is about an hour south of Salt Lake.
Yeah, I was in that area last year. There's a lot of tech companies that are moving there, and I had to do some training out there last year.
Well, next time you're here, let me know. I'll buy you lunch. It's like a second Silicon Valley happening here in Utah.
Yeah. Utah's changed. The first time I went in the 90s, it is drastically different than it was in the 90s.
Yes.
Well, this has been a great conversation. I appreciate everything. You are like the money whisperer to the audience because all the advice that you gave are things that I had to learn by hook or crook, hit or miss. And I learned, and it was a trial by fire process where I just had to throw the sword down and say, this must end. and it's brought me to where I am today. But also, this is for my listeners. Sometimes you're just lost and you don't know what you don't know. When you get to that point, I will give you the advice that I took. I literally had a conversation with God. I said, God, I need to make a change and I need to be better. Please help me and show me the path that you designed for me. Ladies and gentlemen, if you just do that simple request, you can just make the request aloud, make it seem like you're a crazy person, but be in a room by yourself and make that statement. Your life will change. Martin, thank you so much for being on the show.
Hey, Emmett, based on that, can I say one last thing here? It's
Sure.
not on my website, but if your listeners will contact me, I have about a 30 or 40-page report called Faith, Family, and Finances. And it's a biblical perspective on how to achieve financial success. And I'll give it away no charge. Just ask me for it.
You hear that, people? Just remember, mention the Billionaire Lifestyle when you email. And what's your email address?
Martin at tm-wealth.com. That's my second website, tm-wealth.com. So Martin at tm-wealth.com.
And I will put that on my website in the blog post and the show notes. And with that, thank you, Martin. And
hey, my pleasure.
Audience, remember, the other thing that you have to do is to love the person that's in the mirror, because without loving yourself, you can't love anyone else. With that, peace.